Okay, now that I'm not sick anymore, it is time to talk about it. Look at the size of this thing. It was started in 1981 and finished in 1985. The first movie, which was on national TV, came out in 1990. And it matches it, as far as timeline goes, but as far as content, it's about 99.99% watered down, since we are talking 1990 and national TV. As far as content goes, it's closer to the big screen remakes in 2017 and 2019. The 2017 It Chapter 1 is the same as the first chapter of the book, starting with Bill making the paper boat for Georgie, leading him to meet it and it really becoming a problem. Then, 2 years later in 2019, they came out with It Chapter 2, which starts off the same way as the second chapter in this novel does, with the present day attack on the gay couple, leading to the discovery of its return, and the phone calls made to the Losers Club to come back together and pick up where they left off. The 1990 miniseries. It starts off with present day, with the attack on little Lorianne, which is in the book, but somewhere in the middle. In the miniseries, it's what draws Mike's attention to it and starts him bringing the whole gang back together. Both the book and the miniseries introduce us to the adults first, when they receive the call, how they react, and the flashbacks they have. The movie in 2017 introduces us to the Losers Club as kids first. Their problems which make them invulnerable to it and less innocent than the other kids around them. And they're coming together, first fighting bullies, then fighting Pennywise the Dancing Clown. The scene with Georgie. In the book and the miniseries, he's found dead after he is attacked. In the movie, he's taken away completely, and even though I know it's fake, that scene still never fails to tie my stomach in a knot because I have a son that age. On to the way they end. The miniseries ends with 4 of the remaining friends kind of punching their way into its exoskeleton in its spider form and pulling its heart out. Then 3 of them go on their separate ways while Bill stays behind until he can snap his wife out of her catatonic state during a bike ride. The movie ends both times with the gang's defeat of it by more or less not being afraid of it. In Chapter 1, it escapes defeat but is not killed. At the end of Chapter 2, it's more or less, after a huge battle, it's shamed into complete weakness, and like in the miniseries, its heart is pulled out and crushed. Eddie dies in the book, miniseries, and movie. In the book, he loses an arm. It's bitten off by the spider. He bleeds out and dies in the book. In the miniseries, he's picked up and dropped. I guess in such a way that I guess it was blunt force trauma. In the movie, he is spiked through the abdomen with a spider claw. In all 3, book, movie, miniseries, Henry goes to the loony bin, and he is sprung from the loony bin as an old man by one of his friends in a zombie. Well, it appears to him as one of his friends in a more Walking Dead form. Now on to our heroes, the Losers Club. Bill. In the book and the miniseries, he's drawn to the Barrens as kind of his sanctuary. In the movie, he's obsessed with the Barrens because since Georgie is still technically missing, he has not lost hope that he might be alive. In all 3 book, miniseries, and movie, he's a stutterer, of course, the leader of the pack, and it terrorizes him with his survivor's guilt over Georgie. Mike. In all three, he's the one who keeps the lighthouse burning, manages the library, and as a kid joins the Losers Club after the rock fight with the bullies. He is the homeschooled farm boy in the book and the movie. His parents are very much alive in the book. In the movie, they are dead drug addicts, and he's being raised by his grandparents. And it terrorizes him with survivor's guilt over his parents and his inability to, pull his weight on his grandparents' sheep farm in the movie. In the book, it's this huge, bird of prey that stalks him. And in the miniseries, he's more the history buff than Ben is, and it's first appearance in his photo album that makes him a believer. Now Ben, in all three, he's the chubby kid who's in love with Beverly, and he spends most of his time alone before he falls in with Bill and Eddie. And it haunts him as a mummy in the book, a headless boy in the movie, and a dead father and pond scum skeleton in the miniseries. Beverly is, in all three, raised by an abusive father. In the book only, her mother is alive but not really present. And the way it haunts her in all three is the same, spewing blood into her face out of the bathroom sink. Eddie is, in all three, the skittish hypochondriac. It terrorizes him as the gross, creepy leper in the book and the movie, and in the miniseries, just a over-invasive clown in the communal shower. Richie, in all three, is the class clown with a troublesome sense of humor, and it terrorizes him as a werewolf in the book and in the miniseries. We don't see it yet in the first part of the movie, but he does admit to being afraid of clowns. And after one of his terrifying memories is revealed to us in Chapter 2, in which he escapes the animated Paul Bunyan statue, Pennywise does this little song and dance about him having a dirty little secret. Stanley, the Boy Scout in the miniseries, the rabbi's son in the movie. It terrorizes him as a mummy in the miniseries, a really ugly painting lady in the movie, and the same werewolf when he's with Richie in the book. And of course Henry, he's the bully in all three. He's the poor farmer's son in the book, hence the issue with Mike. In the miniseries, I don't really get this cliche 50s greaser look. It kind of reminds me of the guy from the Doug cartoon on Nickelodeon. In the movie, it makes the most sense. He's the son of a sadistic cop in the movie. And of course, the penultimate villain of pretty much anything, Pennywise the Dancing Clown. The book and the movie, he is the most alike. In the miniseries, he looks more like something I'd run from for a different reason, if you know what I mean. Alright, after they all get the call, how they react and how everything moves forward. Bill is at home with Audra in the miniseries and in the movie working on another book. In the movie, he's on a movie set with his wife Audra, and there's kind of an ongoing general consensus, but nobody likes how he ends his stories. Mike is the one making the calls after he picks up on the attack on the gay couple by having his own shortwave radio to listen in on police calls. In the miniseries, we know it's because he made himself present at the investigation of Lori Ann's disappearance. In the book and in the miniseries, Ben gets drunk. In the movie, he leaves during what's obviously an important business meeting. Beverly. In all three, when she gets the phone call, she fights with her husband and she wins. The fight is watered down quite a bit in both the miniseries and the movie, because in the book, the husband, Tom, is a foul-mouthed, misogynistic jerk, in addition to being controlling and abusive. More on him later. Eddie, in the book and miniseries, packs his medicine, and in the book he's arguing with his wife. In the miniseries he's arguing with his mother. In the movie he crashes his car while arguing with his wife. And that was also kind of a similarity between his wife and his mother. So much so that in the movie alone, they picked the exact same actress to play both. Richie, he throws up in both the movie and the miniseries. One time before finishing the show in the movie, and in the miniseries after finishing a show. Stanley, in all three, he commits suicide after he receives the call and writes it in blood. Now, what is the same between the book and the movie and the miniseries, but a little different? Alright, all of the losers except for Mike are captains of industry. The book, only the book implies that it's more of an act of fate than their own efforts in order to make them forget Derry and keep them away. The lunch meeting in the book is very somber, and Stan's suicide has already been disclosed to everyone else. But we know that in the book, no, not in the book, the movie and the miniseries, they all have fun until fortune cookie time. The only grown-up encounter with it that is consistent is Beverly's return home. It's just watered down a lot, even in the movie. Because in the book, it's like the worst of the worst of the worst incest and cannibalism nightmares one could possibly have. What's only in the book? Only in the book is Beverly's husband's attempt to track her down in Derry after beating information out of her best friend. He follows her, and he crosses paths with Bill's wife, who also followed him from where he was. And then he kind of follows her from there to find her. But it finds him first. A little poetic justice right there. The losers, as children's first battle with it, is in the form of a giant eyeball. And Eddie does most of the damage. Even with his arm in a cast, he's stomping the crap out of this eyeball. And it leads to him not being afraid to go down fighting at the end of the book, the end of the miniseries, and the end of the movie. After the final battle as children, when tensions are high, and this is so unbelievably controversial that it would not be in any side screen, Beverly kind of gives herself to each boy physically to sort of reinforce their bond and relieve them of the last shred of innocence. In the book, the final battles between the Losers Club and Pennywise is told in like a back and forth sequence, you know, like one paragraph in the past, followed by like another one in the future that seems to, they all seem to kind of bleed together, so much so that it's almost confusing. Like I had to read them, several of them, more than once to know if I was reading from 1959 or 1985. And of course we know the miniseries and the movies separate the battles respectively. And I'm exhausted, and that covers it. There, we talked about it, and we've defeated it. And I hope this was worth the wait. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Thank you, baby.